Welcome to Center Hice Productions. It is January 17th, and this is going to be a review of the three games coming up this week. And tonight's game's already started. Unfortunately, I had been trying this for a couple hours because it's just getting the tape right. Sometimes I go over it a bit. But anyway, I still will come up with the same predictions. I project this is going to be a game. I'm impressed that there was no score in the first period. That's kind of surprising to me. So the Habs seem to be playing well. But anyway, please hit the likes, subscribes, and we'll go from there. We'll give you the info. Montreal's got a lot of news, lots of injuries. Jake Evans, Slavkovsky, Armia, and even Drouin's not playing. So there's a lot of people out. This team is banged up and banged up real good. Whereas Winnipeg has had a phenomenal year. They've really come out there and surprised the heck out of me, being one of the better teams in the league. And so I would say that this game is not going to be close. Shockingly, like I said, the first period there's no score. I still project this to be a 4 or 5-1 game. Mind you, I just think there's so much firepower over there, and Kyle Connors always does well against us. Um, Ellers does well against us, and I would project those two to be in on it. I wouldn't be surprised if Preferetti is in on it, Perferetti or whatever you want to call him, is in on the play. He does fairly well. Again, and Shifley will probably do okay. He's been having a crazy season, although I've lost all interest in him since that hit on Jake Evans. Is his attitude, and to me, he's never paid the piper. That we had one game there, and I was shocked that he didn't have to go through uh, Jack Eye. So I'm hoping that Jack Eye sends a message. You'll never get away with that again, Shifley. He deserves because Chris Weidman tried to send a message last year, and that's well, he's sending a Smurf. But I give Chrissy credit. It's just how pathetic our big boys were. And Joel Edmondson's one of those guys that shocks the heck out of me. Big boy, and we love him. But where's his standing up for his teammates? I think I've seen it once this season, and there's been multiple times, even for himself. So I see seems like a lot of players we accumulated under Mark Bergevin had that lack of being willing to duke it out for their teammates. So I'm hoping that changes. So anyway, I'm projecting 4 or 5 to 1 tonight. Winnipeg Jets coming into Montreal. And again, Montembeault played great. I was also surprised last week's outcomes with Nashville, us winning that game. Shocking. Beautiful game. The Habs, after having a meeting with Marty St. Louis, that seemed to really turn the course around, except everybody got injured. And again, we played the Islanders well, only losing by 1 goal, that is, 2-1. And then the Rangers beating them. That shocked the heck out of me. I didn't think we could steal that game from the Rangers. And that's just, the Rangers have been playing catch up this year. And now I see why. If you can give up a game to the Habs as bad as we are, and, yes, the Habs played better, but no matter how good we play, New York should be that much better. So they really need to look in the mirror for themselves for that one. So you got to tip up your hats because the Habs fared better last week. Totally got to top my. And Jonathan Drouin again, one of the players. Yeah, he's still allowing a lot of goals against, but at least he's getting some assists. So he is playing better, and it may be upping his value a little bit. So let's hope so, because he must go. And then we go into Thursday night's game where Florida comes in. This is going to be a game. I'm going to give the Habs a little more credit, a little more pushback, but this is a game that might mean more. It's going to mean more to Florida for sure because they need those points badly to grab one of those last wild card spots. They need it badly. Them and Washington are kind of in that zone where they're going to be fighting like cats and dogs. So for me, I project this game to either be a 3-2 win for Florida or a 4-3 win. That's going to depend on a lot of things because we've got so many players out. This team is totally bashed around, and it's a shame because Slavkovsky was really coming on too. He was probably one of the best players for the last week, or so, just slightly over, and played quite well. Him and Jake Evans. Matter of fact, Jake Evans was the other guy. They played quite well. So, real shame that these guys are in Armia too, and that kind of looked like a cheap shot. That shot that Armia took, mind you, it didn't look as bad as it could be, but if you get caught in the right place, I guess that's all it can happen. But yeah, so that's my projection for Thursday night. It's going to be an interesting one. It'd be kind of nice if I don't know. We seem to be defying that tank thing, although I think this week's going to really push us downhill. So let's hope. All right, next game will be the big one everybody's waiting for, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're in much better physical condition than we are, and plus they're a much better team than Montreal. Tons and tons of firepower. They're going to have a field day on this Habs team, especially this Habs team banged up. You will not get the result you got in game one at the beginning of the year. Expect this game to not be close. I expect Mariner to have a great game. I expect Nylander always has a great game against the Habs. And don't be surprised, even Matthews now. And, you know, really they're big guns and should be able to capitalize on Montreal where we're so smashed up. And the only thing I think we do have a bit of an advantage of is their defense is has some weak spots, and their goaltending to me is weaker than last year's. So I'm not impressed by that. But we just don't have the depth, and with all the injuries to make anything of it. So I'm projecting this game 5-1 or 6-1 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's an 0-3 week, and that's the way I see it. Yep, that's the way I see it. And really, I think that's how it's going to happen. I think if anything, you know, this is great for the tank. That's right. And if we think we can pull off anything, we're lying to ourselves. Now, the next topic is going to be is number one. I'm going to say this because a lot of people have taken pop shots at Marty St. Louis. Marty St. Louis, for a rookie coach, has done phenomenal. This team wouldn't even be where they are. Cole Caulfield has looked like he's been so much better of a player this year since Marty's been there. And who does he remind you of? It's Martin St. Louis. Like, I don't know what Cole Caulfield. I really got to give him hands down credit. He's for a little guy. He added some muscle. You can see it. He's got a lot less fear in him, which was nice to see. He goes there and grinds it. He's actually been working harder than Suzuki. I think he's been better than Suzuki this year. Now he is a goal scorer, and Suzuki is more so a play center. But Suzuki still has, and I like Suzuki because he does have a great IQ. But his defensive game, there's a laziness to it, and I'm sorry to say it. And a lot of Habs fans won't call it out. I will. He's a great guy, and when he's on, he's on. But when he's off, he's off. And his face-offs, in my opinion, once we get through this 2023 draft, there's going to be somebody that we pull out as a center that is going to take that spot from Nick Suzuki because his circle numbers are terrible. Terrible. Yeah, they are something to be laughed at. And so, with that being said, I think, I always said watching him, he's been long enough to me that I would have preferred to see him. The only reason he's still at center is because this team is so weak with third and fourth liners. That's the only reason. Otherwise, he would have been a winger a long time ago. So whether him and Caulfield, a lot of people are going to go, oh, their arms are going to go up in here and all. You can't break the two of them up. We got a lot of deep talent coming up. You're going to have a lot of first liners coming up. And I'm sorry to say, I think Caulfield has more of a chance of being on the first line than Nick Suzuki does. So just a lot of more heart being shown from Cole Caulfield, and Doc just does so much work when he's on it. But I think I see their reasoning why they're wanting to use Doc at center because he's not been bad when he's been there. It's just that we just don't have anybody. So we got to get those drafts and get those first rounders real quick. That being said, I will say again, I will reiterate because I'm not a Jonathan Drouin fan, but I've heard it. Most of us are under, when you look at most podcasts, we're all on the same menu. The time is up. Anybody who knows anything about hockey that's coached or played, the time is up for Jonathan Drouin. The ship has sailed. He seems like a nice kid, but the ship has sailed. And I don't even know if he can have a career. But the great thing is because he has played all right the last week. He's gotten some points. Problem is, if you ever watch closely, he gets a lot of minuses as well. So it's the goals he allows against. But we'll give him credit because he's gotten some assists. So maybe that ups his value just a touch. Maybe we can get a fifth round pick for him. Maybe if we can really catch somebody dummified, we get a third round for him. But there's one podcast out that I heard say, keep Jonathan Drouin, get him for 1 or 2 million. Come on, that is a joke. The ship has sailed. It doesn't work in Montreal. He cannot handle the pressure. His wrists are gone. Yzerman knew what he was doing. So stop. There are people out there that cannot disconnect their language from the player they back. And it's pretty damn sad because I wish the rest of the league was judged that way. You judge the players on their performance. Jonathan Drouin is done. Good news is the rumors out this week. There's 2 rumors coming out of the Avs and Avalanche's circle, strangely enough. And believe it or not, it came Pierre LeBrun, who was reporting a lot on the Monahan part of this. But there's also been, prior to today, information that they've been glancing at bringing Jonathan Drouin there. And to me, if there's somewhere he could survive, I've seen him play down here in Halifax. And that was a special connection with him and Nathan McKinnon. So I think that's the one connection, and because they're so deep and they can insulate him. Who knows? Maybe it works out. Maybe it works out with him and Nathan again. That's really all I can see. Or I just don't think he's fit for the NHL. Other than that, but let's hope. Let's hope that's away, and let's see if we're lucky enough to steal a third or a fifth. I'm thinking that it's more worth a fifth if you can get that. Third, I think you're really stretching for. But the next rumor was Pierre LeBrun saying that the Habs are very close to a trade, pulling the trigger on a trade now, and it's involving Sean Monahan. And if I was the Habs, you got to look at something. That there's one trade that's standing out to me from last year that now we're kind of going, this is the only trade. Did we lose on this one? Starting to look like we did in the early goings here. Barron has not lived up to, and he's such a great skater. That's the sad part. He has to get physical if he wants to play in NHL, or to fit in on this team anyway, as well, because too many people have both played him and can play physical. But it's definitely looking like the Avs took us for a ride grabbing Lecky. I think we could have done a little better. I think Joe Sakic kind of fleeced us on that one. And that's just my thought. I think, it was debatable. I can give Hughes credit in the sense that, okay, there had to be something in Barron they seen. So let's hope. Let's hope that the latter portion down the road, he's only young still, that maybe, because it's been ever since the injury last year, he has looked different. But anyway, let's hope, and if we're going to make that trade with the Avs, you make it clear this time. You're not fleecing us this time, Sakic. You fleeced us last year. You may not want to give up a first rounder. You're giving it up, and it's going to be a 2023 because Montreal has to go into the mindset in this trade deadline. They got 3 guys they got a chance to get a first round on, and if they trade them, they absolutely can. And Monahan's a definite. There's no doubt in my mind this guy can garner a first round draft pick. So it's going to be sad to see him go, but I have faith too that if the team he goes to doesn't wrap him up and he goes to the free agency, we could always get him back, which would be interesting because he's shown so much in Montreal. We've fallen apart since he's left, to tell you the truth. And then, so that being said, that's supposed to be happening soon. But I think if I'm the Habs, you got to get going on the trades. We have the garbage crew, which is Jonathan Drouin, Mike Hoffman, and Dandanoff. And there's rumors coming out of Washington that the Capitals have been Dandanoff more so. They've been really looking at Dandanoff. They have also looked at Hoffman though. And Hoffman's also been getting a look from a couple other teams, but Dandanoff, mostly the Capitals. So if we can get rid of Drouin, Dandanoff, Hoffman, and maybe a fourth player there, like an Armia, which I don't know, that might be harder to do. He's actually, anyway. That being said, or even a Galley, where you paid most of his contract, and possibly Weidman. Weidman is a kind of a flip card because I've listened to some comments and they do make sense. Um, as long as we have the mindset that the kids have won those spots, then fine, keep them if you have to. If you don't put them on waivers or you don't trade him, because I think you could get a fifth round for him, and he's a good locker room guy, so maybe you do keep him for practices and just in case, like what we're going through right now, injuries. Right, he might fill in as the seventh guy. So where he's not a huge valuability, he's always usually third line. Not a whole lot to worry about there. But we got to get that garbage crew gone. And then we have the three big ones to deal with. And if we can pull the trigger at least on one of them right now, and if that rumor's got any truth by Pierre LeBrun, pull the trigger. We have to get this going. That may also get the wheels turning through the rest of the NHL and get things to loosen up. That's what we need to have happen because then maybe if you're setting back uh, with Anderson and Edmonston getting closer to the trade deadline. And I know Hughes and Gordon have said they're not even looking at getting rid of them. They said that about Lekanen and they said that about um, Toffoli. So if that be the case, if the right offer comes, they're taking it. And I do think those two guys can garner because for some reason I don't. Now I like Josh Anderson, and I see what he can do, but he just isn't consistent. But I see what the league's looking at where he's a power forward. So that to me is why there's going to be a garnering so much, and there seems to be a lot of interest league wide for him because there's not that many players that big with uh, his speed and what he brings physically. So I think that's what's going to come there, and I think we absolutely can garner a first round. If Toffoli got us a first round and more, there's no doubt that Josh Anderson can do that. And I know, and like I say, you don't pull the trigger unless you can't say no. And I think there'll be offers, and they won't be able to say no, and they'll pull the trigger and get that first round. Stick to with him, Monahan and Edmondson. You stick to the first round draft picks because I believe you can get the market is right, even for Joel Edmondson, who has been shaky this year. But for a veteran defenseman going into the playoffs, he's since the market is there's not as many of them. But I think there's one other guy with value at that degree. So with only two of them, you're in the right spot to getting the attention. So this there's no doubt in my mind that Joel Edmondson should be with Hughes's and Gordon's mindsets. They should be able to pull off a trade like the Toffoli trade or like the Florida trade. Sorry, no doubt in my mind. So with that being said, that's again, I thought it was ridiculous to hear this, and I don't. It's time that hockey fans understand. Let's get real. Racism and the tongue, because the tongue, no matter how, is part of the ethnic side of people, is still a form of racism. So stop, reporters. This goes to you too. You get a big movement directly within Montreal now. That's why I have so much respect for Cowan and Hickey and Basu because they stick to reporting. They don't get pulled into the community and political garbage of that French thing going on so that there's the French player can do what he wants. That's wrong. Wrong. Why do you think the Montreal Canadiens in the 70s and back were so successful? They had a great mixture, but the rules went straight across the board for it didn't matter. And if you ever looked at the Habs, they had a lot of back in their heydays. They had a lot of Frenchmen, they had a lot of Englishmen, and they had a few Americans. So there was a nice mix. But there's a movement today, and I don't know what it's doing in pro sports or any sports at any level. I'm shocked that it's there, and it's about time that all levels of hockey, and this goes also to Bettman, a move's got to be made, to really clarify that this has got to, because they don't, here's another thing. You heard Subban getting crucified. Well, it's funny. It's a funny thing. Everybody wants to crucify Subban. Well, I'm going to tell you what. Yes, he was big. That was the only knock you could put him on him with because of the Hollywoodish stuff. I get that. But this is the generation we're in. That is no reason to go against a player. And there was a battle going on within the room. And it's very clear that you could see it with Carey Price, who said it as well, that PK Subban was a playoff performer, and he was a guy that got into that room and he was vocal and he would attempt to lift this team. And he got on the ice and he did. So what does that tell you? The guys that were kind of complaining, and I liked Brendan Gallagher, and this is what kind of changed my tune with Brendan Gallagher. So the news came out, and when you watch the interviews with him, Pacioretty, and there was a lot of those two seemed to be the big plugs behind getting rid of Subban. I'm sorry to say this, and Habs fans might not like this. You can take it how you want. I really don't care. It's my channel, and it's my opinion. And being an HR guy, studying HR, you could see it in the body language. We still got the old boys club going on. And I'm sorry to say, I'm going to say this. Well, a lot of people aren't brave enough. I got a bad feeling. There's more to the story about it just being Hollywood. It's funny. Color of the skin seems to make a difference, doesn't it? Because it's evident the French tongue goes a long way in Montreal. But the color of skin, I'm sorry. Now, this new regime I think is fine. They have nothing to do with this. I'm talking about the old regime. And I'm talking about Mark Bergevin's regime. I'm telling you right now, with the comments I've heard, because I go and I support other channels, and some of the hockey fans, you should be disgusted. You should hide in a corner. It's disgraceful the things you say about PK Subban. One thing I can say, the money he has raised, and I don't care if someone's raised more. That's a fluke if they did, because it wouldn't be many. A lot of the money came out of his own pocket as well, matching levels. So Hart, like Carey Price said in an interview about a week and a half ago, don't ever question PK Subban's heart. He had tons of it. Now I look at those other players. Now I'll give Gatley some credit in saying he had heart, but Matt Pacioretty had none. And there were a lot of players, and we still have a lot of players because we've had for about 25 years a batch of players that are heartless. We had only a few guys come along here and there that had a heart, but the culture has been heartless for the most part. And I'm sorry, it's the one thing I can say about Galley. I think it was jealousy. And then I got to question race. Sorry, comes down to it. But there's evidently a lot of jealousy, and what a lot of people won't say, I believe it came down to race. You don't have to like PK Subban, uh, but the nasty stuff that's been said about him, you can't question what he's done in the game. And you can't question when Carey Price has a great character person. And you could see it in the body language when these guys were interviewed. Where I'll tell you right now, I could see it real clear. And this was me feeling things out. I could see there was a problem with the way Brendan Gallagher and Pacioretty were speaking about Subban. Yes, it was a time and era, and I know the old boys, even the guys I supported, like the Gainies, and they weren't used, and the Savards, of course, the Sir Savards. These guys weren't used to somebody that big. But think about it. Guy Lafleur was that big. Now he wasn't as flamboyant personality wise, but he had that type of support. But he was a Frenchman. This guy was a black kid. There was a problem with that, wasn't it? So I'd say, people, check yourselves. And I'm sorry to bring that out. And I'm sorry you will not change my mind. I hope you leave your comments. Tell me your opinion on it. But I think you're going to see a lot of trades come up this week. We're going to start nosediving. The only couple teams I don't know if we can get low enough to is Chicago, Anaheim, and San Jose. Uh, those teams are going to be hard to catch. I'm projecting us to be like bottom fourth from the bottom or fifth in that projection. I think 1 to 3 is going to be hard to get. Can be done though. A couple of them. Chicago is going to be the hardest though. But anyway, I want to thank you. And yes, this gives us all something to think about. And for me, it's something to work against. And put your heads together and mention this in circles. If you got some leverage in different areas of politics or something, or hockey, it needs to happen. There needs to be a movement because in my books, I'm sorry to say this. No, actually, I'm not sorry. I don't believe in racism, so I'm not sorry. But what I'm sorry to say is the individuals that are involved, good luck with trying to get them to admit it. Right? Check yourselves. Look in the mirror. And PK Subban, you were awesome, buddy. Yes, I know you were a Hollywood show, and that's what kind of ruffled feathers. But you know what? You always had heart, and you always performed in the playoffs, didn't you? I thought the world of you, and you got always will have my endorsement, my friend. And please, Habs fans, choose the right side of the road in battle. Anytime you see racism, bullying, any of that nonsense, it doesn't belong. It's the same as, I just like myself, I just got a couple of cards come onto my channel and from another hockey channel and try to make comments when they committed the actions that were passed on to other podcasts. So why, if the host and the co-host can't send them, take care of their own business and be honest, you allowed it on your channel. Let it go. Stop. And don't ever send your people to me because I'm just going to block them because it just shows me there's no backbone. And if that's the type of mentality, the nastiness, don't bring it to my channel. It's not welcome here at Center Hice. And you call that really, a healthy network or healthy channel? Yeah, okay, really. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching, taking the time. Please hit the likes and the subscribes, and we'll see you on the next one. And I know I will always say this too. I will mention that battle when people are lied about or attacked. It's the same thing. Stay out of other people's podcasts. Stay away from people that have left your channel that just want peace. And when you don't do that and you let them be, there'll be no problem. But the moment you do that, one thing about me, I will call you out. Understand that. And you don't have to like it, nor does anybody in your crew have to like it. I really don't care because I don't accept bullies. Okay? So keep your bullies to yourself because they're not welcome here. All right? And it would be really nice if you could mature up enough to leave people like Tony Marinello's show and other channels and the Grant McKeagues alone that you lie about, and myself as well, because was there and a couple of others were there on your channel. You lie. That's what you stoop to. Leave us alone. We don't want nothing to do with you. Okay? So just let us be. But this is one guy you will know. You will not. To send 2 bullies over, trust me, guys, you're a joke. Do you think you intimidated me? Not a chance. So please hit the likes, hit the subscribes, and I appreciate you being here. And tell your friends. And we're gonna, like I say, we're gonna try to make this an interesting channel. And like I say, eventually, I hope to not have to bring up that little spiel at the end. But when I had to bring it up because it's been directed on Tony's show and my show, and against an ex-hockey scout, and to lie about us all is not right. So don't send your bullies. It doesn't wash. None of us are intimidated by you. So thank you. And where does the puck drop first? Right here at Center Hice. Thanks for watching, guys. And tank Habs tank is what I say. Right on. And God bless you all.